All right. Good evening, everyone. Broadcasting live from the top floor of Centennial Hall on the beautiful campus of Missouri University of Science and Technology. I am Justin Rawls. Thank you guys so much for joining us for our virtual parent Q&A, specifically first generation edition. However, if your student is not first gen or if you are not a parent and the student themselves, feel free to stay on. I'm here, if nothing else, but to help. So just a couple of housekeeping items. If everyone would please make sure that you have your microphones muted. We will get to a Q&A portion later on, but I do have some material that I'm going to go over right out the gate. And also, if you wouldn't mind, feel free to turn your cameras off. I am terribly easily distracted. So kind of the format for this evening, thank you all sincerely for the quality and number of questions that you guys contributed when you filled out the form to register for this session. What I have done is I have taken the questions that you guys have submitted, and I've also taken some of our most commonly asked questions and most common items for discussion and put together a slideshow that we're going to walk through together. And then I'm going to cover those kind of as they come up. So I do apologize that the front end of this interactive Q&A is going to be very much heavy on me talking at you. While that's going on, feel free to utilize the chat. Naturally, by the time this comes to an end, I will not be able to get to every single question as best I try, but I will do my best. And if you ask something in chat and I don't get to it immediately, don't worry. That doesn't mean that I'm ignoring you. It may mean that you've stumped me and I'm stalling for time, but I will get to it later on. It may just mean I have a slide about that coming up. And then at the end, I will open it up for any questions from you all. We can go into some other topics in painstaking detail that you'd like to discuss. But likewise, like I said, as this goes on, the chat is the best way to interact initially before we get to the Q&A. So right now, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. And I'm going to get started, like I said, going over some of the most common questions that came up during the submitted ones, and then also the ones that in the past have been the most beneficial stuff for us to cover from admissions. But I'm first going to start by talking about my single favorite thing on campus to discuss, and that's me. My name is Justin Rawls. So I'm the Assistant Director of Transfer Recruiting. Specifically, I can be a resource to you, especially if you have questions about AP credits, dual enrollment courses. I stare at course equivalency databases so that you don't have to. Feel free to capture this screen or write down my contact information because we all here at Admissions are here to help. A few fun factoids about me. I'm a Rolla native, graduated Rolla High School class of 2000. That's easy math. You know how old I am now. Also, when I was a student here, it was still University of Missouri Rolla, so I have all of the old UMR swag. When I was here, I participated in marching band, concert band, jazz band, pep band. There's a theme there. I went all in band geek, and I don't regret it. Also, I participated in fraternity life and also KMNR, the campus's commercial-free, free-format radio station, keeping Rolla weird since 1970. We're a number school, so some things I like to cover just to reinforce the decision that you're currently attempting to make about Missouri University of Science and Technology. So I got the old name still stuck in my head. It pops up. Number one public university in Missouri for return on investment. That's what your student stands to be making compared to what they put into the cost of education. Number one best college in Missouri, and number 5 in the entire U.S. for engineering majors. Number one best value public university in Missouri, and number 6 in the U.S. Number 3 best public university in the U.S. for career placement, and number 9 for co-ops and internships. New York Times rated us one of the nation's top 10 high-value institutions, and the Wall Street Journal just a few months ago rated us the number 1 public university with a degree that makes a salary impact. So across the board, the most common question that came up in the submitted questions was, what are the next steps? And specifically, since this Q&A is specialized and geared towards first-gen college students, we wanted to really get down to the nuts and bolts and go over things like that. So any student that has been admitted, their portal at apply.mst.edu has been updated with a checklist similar to this. It might not look exactly the same, but this is by and large what an admitted student's checklist will look like. some of the first steps that I want to make sure that all students are aware of. The first thing that a student should take care of upon receiving their admission is follow the instructions for setting up their JOES account. So JOES is basically the internal system that the university uses for all students to access their online internal portal, and also, most importantly, their email. Also located on here, you will see it under forms on about the middle of the screen on this example, is signing up for A&R. Now, we're terrible about using abbreviations and acronyms for things without explaining them. So I want to go over, just like it's listed there, A&R stands for advising and registration. That is when your student will meet with their faculty advisor, and they will register and actually enroll for courses. In my opinion, signing up for early sessions is of great importance to your students, even if you're still in the decision-making process. Obviously, enrolling for courses, that is the number one thing to complete before courses start. And the earlier session that your student is able to get in, the more likely they are, not necessarily to stress about not getting the classes they need, but most importantly, to make sure that they get classes that work for days and times that work out best for them. The busiest and always most crowded advising and registration session is the very final one on the Friday before classes start. And my personal tip is don't be like me and wait until the very last second, because that's how you end up with an 8 a.m. Monday morning Calc 2 class taught by former astronaut Tom Akers, who doesn't care that I didn't wake up early enough to scrape my windshield. So even if you're still in the decision-making process, locking down a spot in one of those advising and registration sessions will ensure that if you need to move to a different date or cancel it altogether, at least you've got a seat reserved at one of the early sessions if you're able to get into it. The other item is the housing interest form. So while there is a deposit of an application fee for the housing interest form that goes live on November 1st, that is still a ball that you can get rolling without having to make a full firm 100% decision. Something that I'll talk about here in a second, because there were a couple of questions about deciding. So the housing interest form, there are several steps to the housing process. The first is filling out the housing interest form, basically stating I'm interested in housing. It's also where you'll start by, your student will list off kind of what they're looking for as far as their top 3 choices. Those forms are processed in the order that they are received. So the earlier that your student gets that in, then the more likely they are to get that offer. I'll talk about housing in more detail coming up next. And then also FAFSA. FAFSA is, if you paid any attention to the media or news, last year was a bit different in terms of the ebb and flow of it. So this year, FAFSA is going to open on December 1st, knock on wood. And then for the state of Missouri and for a lot of our scholarships and us in general, we're looking to have that submitted by February 1st is your goal there. That's set by the state of Missouri as far as getting that submitted. You can submit it later, but we do have some scholarships that are looking for FAFSA submission by February 1st. Once again, it opens December 1st, so make note of that. Also, a common question that we hear is, how do we decide? How long until my student needs to make a decision and commit? That is not really something that you have to be concerned with holistically, because your student doesn't actually have to tell us, yes, I am coming. You don't have to make a firm decision. There's no date to commit. We will have students that apply the weekend, even the day that classes start, and we will get them admitted and we will be able to get them all set up. From a stress perspective, I don't recommend it, but it is possible. So that being said, there's no timeline to make a decision. The main timeline you're looking at are things that you need to take care of to reduce the burden of stress for you, and also be aware of some of those existential deadlines that come kind of about naturally, like specific scholarship deadlines, something that I'm talking about in just a few slides. And like I said, making sure you're getting an early entrance into advising and registration, housing choices, things like that. So a student doesn't have to make a actual firm commit to us. It's following those next steps on the checklist, just naturally proceed that. I always look at it like, until you've put skin in the game, until you've paid, that enrollment deposit, put down your deposit for your dorm room, pay the application fee for the housing interest form, things like that. Those are kind of the natural things that that start the process. Moving on to one of the second most popular question that we were asked was general information about housing and dining. So I will go over quite a bit of information here, but I will say the best resource for you overall for that is going to be reslife.mst.edu. And I am going to have some links to remember later on towards the end of the Q&A. When it comes to reslife.mst.edu, not only do you have incredibly detailed information about housing and the dining plans, but also when it comes to, looking at residential life, clubs and organizations, things like that, they have all that available on the page as well. Also at reslife.mst.edu, we have virtual tours available of all the residential halls and the different setups in the different residence halls as well. And if you want actual like specs for the rooms, we're a school that's known for architectural engineering. We have a comical number of specs and diagrams about the room. So if you want to know how deep the left-hand desk drawer is, we've got that on the website as well. So more than just exploring living options and dining plans, you can also find people to reach out to for special situations, unique accommodations, things like that. And also housing policy exceptions. That was a question that several parents had that I wanted to address. So as far as living on campus, it is required for students to live on campus-approved housing for 4 semesters or basically 2 years. So when a student can apply for an exemption for a couple of reasons. If a student has completed 60 college credit level courses post high school, so dual enrollment, AP credit, things like that, it has to be college level courses that have been taken after high school graduation. So 60 credit hours. This applies more specifically to transfer students, non-domestic students, things of that nature. You're able to apply for exemption in that. Excuse me, didn't even try to find the mute button. Also, if you're going to be 21 or turning 21 by the first day of class, you're able to request an exemption there as well. If you have a direct family in a 60-mile radius, another example of an exemption that you can apply for. Also, if a student is married or have kids, that's another cause for an exemption, though I don't recommend doing either of those just to get your own apartment. Like I mentioned, transfer students, we also have, and I'll talk about this shortly, upperclassmen only housing as well. And I'll cover some more residential options that some parents had questions about up next. So meal plans. When you're looking at meal plans, there's 2 basic ways that you can break down dining options on campus. There are the meal swipes, which is kind of the traditional meal swipe option, what most people are expecting. And there's also the declining balance dollars, or DBDs. Not the most handy name, but basically it's money on the student's ID that they're able to use at campus dining locations. So areas that students are able to dine on campus, there is the food court in Havener that has a variety of options. Chick-fil-A, there are several different venues like Burger 573, Build for pizza and pasta. There's a sub sandwich and salad place. There's also a Latin option and an Indian food place, and then also Einstein's Bagels. Also, and when you're looking at DBDs, there are also some local establishments that do accept the declining balance dollars as well. Papa John's is a great example that I use that's right next to campus. And then as far as other dining availability, there's also the cafeteria located in Thomas Jefferson Hall. Probably one of the most popular dining options on campus. It's the more traditional cafeteria style setup like that I was used to when I was a student way back in the day. So one meal swipe, for instance, gets you into the Thomas Jefferson Hall cafeteria, and it's self-serve buffet style fare. And there's also different stations where students can get, specific items they want. So you can, load up on whatever they are serving that evening and get a side of 3 slices of pizza, though we don't recommend doing that long term. So as far as the breakdown of it, students staying in Thomas Jefferson Hall have access to a meal plan that is specific for students living in Thomas Jefferson Hall, where that cafeteria is located. So they're the only ones that have access to the unlimited meal swipe plan. So you're able to swipe, get in, eat all you want, and then have all of your meals there, not have to worry about running out because it is unlimited. The unlimited nature of it only does work in the Thomas Jefferson Hall cafeteria. When you're looking at using the meal swipes at the other options in the food court, every semester when it starts, I have students and parents that have some confusion around how meal swipes work in the more traditional food court style setup. Basically, all of the venues in the food court, like Burger 573, for instance, they all have combos on their menu. So one combo is one meal swipe. So a student can take advantage of everything in the food court and also Einstein's Bagels by using their meal swipes there. So the declining balance dollars, however, is basically funds on the student's account. And so they're able to purchase whatever they would like. So if they wanted to, for instance, get 12 pizzas from Build, as long as they have the funds available on the DBDs or the declining balance dollars, they're able to do that. You can't do that with the meal swipes, obviously, because that's not a combo, 12 pizzas to go. So you can see the breakdown of those there. And you'll also notice, so a student will receive half of their meals or their DBDs each semester. I mean, ors and kind of both of those. So the meals, DBDs each semester. Meals not used in the fall do not roll over. DBDs not used in the fall, they do roll over from fall to spring. However, they do not roll over at the conclusion of the academic year. So obviously, the biggest question that most parents and students have is, well, how many meals, how many DBDs? Should I go all DBDs? What does that look like? And it really does depend on the student. Until a student is on campus and kind of seeing what their preference is, it's hard to make an overall generalized statement. I will say that especially when it comes to DBDs, regardless of what you anticipate, your student may tend to use those a bit more willy-nilly right out the gate, is what I kind of see. And oftentimes, I do see people overshooting when it comes to meal plans, or in some cases, the DBDs as well. Thankfully, housing does allow the first 2 weeks after classes start to make an adjustment, any adjustment that you need to the meal plans. So you do have that option. With the DBDs, students and parents are able to log into the portal and add funds to that at any time. Now, we are a cash-free campus when it comes to dining. So students can use credit, debit card. Anyone can eat in our dining facilities, including Thomas Jefferson. So even if a student does not have a meal swipe plan or doesn't want to use that, they can still use the DBDs to purchase one-time access into a meal at the buffet style self-serve option at Thomas Jefferson. So oftentimes the question is asked, well, why would I purchase the DBDs instead of just having my student use a credit debit card? Fantastic question. There is a slight advantage in the conversion rate of what DBDs cost compared to the actual dollar value. So you do come out slightly better that way. They are also not taxed, so there is an incentive there to use the DBDs as well. Also, the DBDs, declining balance dollars, can be used at other venues like I mentioned, including the Starbucks on campus, and then there's multiple Starbucks on campus, and then also the minor break convenience stores located at the residence facilities and also in Havener too. Just a reminder, if anyone does have any questions while I'm going over the pre-submitted questions and the information that I'm covering, feel free to utilize the chat and I'll address those as best I can as I cover the material. We'll have more time for open questions at the end. Another question was about more details of the specific residential options. So for incoming freshmen, they have access to residential commons 1 and 2, which are identical, Thomas Jefferson Hall, and University Commons. Upperclassmen have access to Minor Village and Rolla Suites, which are a little bit more apartment style. We also have 20+ fraternities and sororities on campus, and the Christian campus houses also do count as on-campus housing as well. So just a brief rundown, I will specify that reslife.mst.edu has much more thorough information, and I do recommend you check that out. Thomas Jefferson Hall is the more traditional kind of old school style setup that people my age were more familiar with. They do have community bathrooms, so that is something that sometimes make students clench up when I go over that. However, now that I'm a parent, I better appreciate the fact that they are cleaned twice a day and also restocked. Thomas Jefferson Hall is, if you picture what you imagine a typical dorm room looks like, that's the setup. And it is the most affordable option when it comes to a single room occupancy. So I do like to highlight that as well. It is accessible to campus by an underground walkway right under 63. It's located just kind of northeast of the computer science building. Residential Commons is probably the most popular for both underclassmen and upperclassmen. It has a variety of room setups. You can see the double deluxe suite here. So there's different amount of setups as far as the way the rooms are laid out and the number of students in said rooms. It does have the half bath and the full bath. It is located directly across from Havener through the brand new underground walkway right under 63 that was just completed and after renovation this summer. And it is, like I said, as far as proximity to campus, the closer of the residential halls other than Rolla Suites, the upperclassmen housing, which is literally the closest. In fact, I think it's closer to campus than my office currently. University Commons typically is the one that we see fill up the quickest. It is the largest and the newest in terms of residence halls. You can see it's a larger suite style setup with a larger size living space, dining area, and then also does contain a full kitchen. And then it does have 2 full baths instead of the half bath, full bath that Residential Commons has. Also, one thing I specifically like to highlight are our living learning communities. I definitely recommend all students check out the living learning community options that are posted on the reslive.mst.edu page. So everything from our Honors Academy has priority access, a specific floor setup for students in the Honors Academy. There's also the change makers for students that are interested in leadership and team building. And then there's also for students interested in liberal arts, there's a living learning community related to that. So definitely check out those options to kind of help students find a good location and also help them find their people as well. And then once like I mentioned, upperclassmen housing for Minor Village and Rolla Suites, more apartment style. Very popular question, honestly, consistently is about scholarships. I'm going to start by going over a couple of items, specifically my cheat sheet for parents and students when it comes to make sure you're not leaving money on the table. The first one, and I feel like the most underutilized one, is if a student logs into their application portal at apply.mst.edu, on the right-hand side, they have an assigned admissions counselor. So you can see our face and our contact information. Below that, however, is your assigned counselor for student financial services. So they are specifically there to help you with anything money related. So from FAFSA to financial aid, if you have questions about loans, grants, and scholarships. I find that a lot of students and parents make sure that they reach out to their admissions counselors, but not enough set aside that time to meet with their student financial services counselor. So I definitely encourage you to do that. Student financial services, if you keep watching visit.mst.edu, they have regular virtual sessions similar to this, but specifically focused on nothing but the financing side of things, scholarship, tuition, financial aid, FAFSA, especially as we get close to the launch of FAFSA. They will have multiple sessions available, and you can always schedule a virtual one-on-one, in-person one-on-one, or reach out to them directly. And your student-specific student financial service counselor is on the portal. Scholarships.mst.edu for students that have been admitted and have set up their JOES account or their email address at mst.edu will then be able to log into scholarships.mst.edu, which is our scholarship universe, and it is specific to your student. So when your student logs in on that site, they put in their information, and then there's a series of questions, and the more questions they answer, the more specialized the listings of scholarships will be for that student. It's going to be showing everything that your student is in consideration for or possible consideration for, anything from automatic scholarships to merit-based scholarships to competitive scholarships or scholarships that require a second application or scholars programs, and then also department-specific scholarships as well. So make sure you're spending time on there. And like I said, the more questions you answer, the more in-depth the offerings are able, and especially getting into more restricted scholarships. I know that Sean, one of our students that works in the Visit Center, said that his goal was to go through and see how many possible questions that allows you to ask. And he ended up getting bored and giving up after 412 questions. So it's extremely thorough. You don't have to answer that many. You can answer as much as you choose. It's just recommended that you typically answer at least 20 to have more specific options that show up for you and your student. So as far as tuition, we do have a flat rate tuition system. So if a student takes from 12 to 18 credit hours, then it is the same flat rate. This allows students to kind of pick and choose how much they want to invest into their semester. If they decide to add up and max out as much as they can take, it's the same rate as if they take a lower set. Maybe the student has more challenging courses and is taking fewer, then they're able to kind of customize their course load. If a student goes beyond that 18 credit hours, you can still continue to take more hours. It's just that at that point, those additional ones are charged at the per credit hour rate, which I believe for fall 2025 is $570. I was blanking on the last line, but that's also available on the website. And so when you look at the different tiers, freshmen obviously do start out. So first-time college students start out at the tier 1A. Now, many students have taken dual enrollment courses. They're bringing in AP credits. So while they may be a first-time college student, they may not be a credit level freshman. That's okay. We're going to start all students that are first-time college students at the freshman rate. You're guaranteed that for the first semester. Now, if a student has enough credits that they have brought in to push them above the 30 credit hours, you're still guaranteed that freshman rate for that first semester, and then you would be into the standard tier for your major starting that second semester. That's something I like to be aware of because that can catch some parents and students off guard. But the good news is that you are guaranteed that freshman rate regardless of the number of credits that student is starting with. Now, if you are a transfer student, that's slightly different. Then you do start directly into the tier assigned to your major. On here, I have the cost of attendance for first-time college students. One thing that I highly recommend that can take a lot of the guesswork out of it for you is if you go to our website and search costs, or go directly to the Student Financial Services page, there is a cost estimator tool. So you or your student will put in your specific information and it will show you the estimation for what your cost of attendance is going to be. Obviously, you see the tuition and the student fees, but the books and supplies and housing and dining, that does vary from student to student. And obviously, housing and dining is going to depend on what residential hall your student chooses and what dining options you select as well. So the numbers listed here are based on what students have reported that are currently involved in currently take advantage of book supplies, housing, dining on a campus. So that's a survey of only students that are taking advantage of those. Now, the cashier's office. So questions about when tuition comes out. So statements from the cashier's office are generated on or around the 15th of each month, and then they are due on the 10th of the following month. So anticipated aid amounts are subtracted from the total cost the semester before you are billed. So the first statement is going to be generated in July. So that is something to keep in mind. Your first statement is going to be generated July 15th. And then also as far as financing, you can choose to pay the full amount or use payment installments. It splits up the remaining semester balance into up to 4 payments with a 1% finance charge applied to any balance that is carried forward on that. I definitely encourage you once again to reach out to Student Financial Services, talk to your specific Student Financial Services counselor. They can go over what it looks like with loans, your scholarship specific to your student, any grants that come into play, and also walk you through how to read the statement. There's actually a fantastic page on the Student Financial Services website specific to the cashier's office on how to read that statement. A lot of parents wanted me to go over in detail different scholarships options. So even though I listed kind of the cheat sheet at scholarships.mst.edu, I will go over some scholarships kind of from a top-down view. So some new scholarships that we have, Solving for Tomorrow is a specific one for Missouri residents. So if you have an average gross income of less than $70,000, and you can see the ACT, SAT requirements there, and file FAFSA by February 1st, then you do do qualify for the Solving for Tomorrow scholarship, and it is renewable for 4 years with a 2.75 GPA and filing FAFSA every year. And then Trailblazer. So this may be something that many of the students on this first gen session could apply for, or may be eligible for incoming freshmen for fall 2025 that identify as a first generation student. Then they do qualify for a $2,000 renewable scholarship for 4 years if they maintain a 2.75 GPA. One of the most common scholarships that I see for both in-state and out-of-state students, it's technically called the Groundbreaker Scholarship, but it is a first-time college merit-based scholarship, and you can see the different amounts for Missouri residents and out-of-state residents. This is an automatic scholarship, so if your student qualifies for it based on their high school GPA and their ACT, SAT scores, or their rubric score on the essays that they submitted, if they submitted test optional, there's no additional application necessary. It's based on that combination. And if you search Groundbreaker on the website, there's an extremely handy chart that shows the GPA on one side, and then on the bottom, it shows the ACT, SAT scores. There's no real easy way for us to indicate test optional, since it just does depend on the outcome of the essay. It does show what tier of this scholarship the student would fall into. So if you look at that chart and you see that your student is maybe just a few clicks down from the next tier, please keep in mind the scholarships for students, when you receive that initial offer that goes out after your acceptance for automatic scholarships, you're able to have your student update their ACT and SAT scores. So you can update those all the way through the summer, right before the semester starts. So if your student submitted and was admitted with a specific ACT, SAT score, and then continues to retake it, it will never hurt your student. It will never go below what you were accepted with, but it can improve for your scholarship consideration. So we do take a super score. So if you look, for instance, at the ACT, if your student improves in any of the subcategories beyond the composite, then we take the highest of those specific numbers. So for instance, your student was admitted with a certain composite, and let's say they did absolutely amazing on the math section, but really kind of bombed the reading section. If they retake it and they improve the reading section, but the other ones go down, that doesn't matter. We're just going to take the score that improved and then update your super score to update your composite. So a student is able to retake that. And then the same thing based with the final official GPA from the high school transcript that is submitted. If that improves as well, scholarships are updated if it helps the student when we receive that final official transcript and any updated ACT, SAT scores. You do have to let us know that the student has retaken the ACT and submit those through ACT or SAT officially, so that we have access to that. And the Border County Award, this is for students that are living in any of the counties that border Missouri. So it is a 100% waiver of out-of-state tuition that is renewable with a 3.0 cumulative GPA. I do like to specify it is a waiver. Your student is not considered an in-state student. So a lot of times when that first statement comes out and you see the tuition cost, that's before the border county has been applied, because it's roughly, it translates to about $18,000 that adjusts the out-of-state tuition to what it would be if that student was in state. Now, if you do qualify for the border county or the connection award that I'll talk about next, that trumps the Groundbreaker scholarship. So a student that is able to get the border county or the connection award, the Groundbreaker scholarship is not stackable. And the border county is of a much higher value in terms of dollar amount. And you can also see the border county extra award. So if your student does get a specific ACT, SAT score listed there, then there's an extra amount that they're able to receive on that beyond the waiver as well. Similarly, when it comes to waivers, is the S&T Connection Award for residents of Arkansas, Kansas, and Oklahoma. It is, once again, it's a 100% waiver of out-of-state tuition that's renewable with the 3.0 cumulative GPA. And students may be eligible for, once again, the Connection Extra Award if they have a qualifying ACT or SAT score as well. And then, likewise, it is not stackable with the Groundbreaker scholarships. Now, if your student did apply test optional, you will receive an actual financial letter with the automatic scholarships. Once their essay has been all processed, you will still receive that automatic offer. Now, if you are looking for additional scholarships, even though you submitted test optional, there are scholarships that are still available with test optional without the ACT, SAT. Department specific scholarships are one that I always mention. But if your student did apply test optional, however, still did take the ACT, SAT, you'll see that some of the scholarships do have a ACT, SAT, like this, for instance, the S&T Connection Award. Even if your student applied it and was admitted test optional, you can still qualify for additional scholarships that you apply for that use the ACT, SAT. So even if you were admitted without ACT, SAT scores, you can use and upload those scores for specific scholarship consideration as well. And then two of the scholarships that I like to mention that really have a time component made for them. Remember, like I said, there's no firm deadline as far as to making a decision, deciding to come to Missouri S&T, but some of the natural deadlines are specific around things like scholarships. So the Chancellor Scholarship is a prestigious scholarship specific for Missouri residents. I'll talk about the out-of-state version of this next. So it does have a separate application. It is a very competitive scholarship. You can see the qualifications, the current requirements for that as well. This is once again one that does require an ACT, SAT score to be able to apply for. It has a December 1st deadline. So every year with this one and also the Distinguished Scholars Award that I'll talk about next, every year I do see some parents and students that are waiting to submit or even apply, which this is for admitted parents and students, so hopefully you're not in this boat, but parents and students that are waiting to apply until the student gets the highest ACT, SAT score possible. Oftentimes they don't realize that you can update that number, so they're waiting for that perfect score after the student retakes it. They get the score that they're looking for, but they've missed the deadline for some of the competitive scholarships you need to apply for. So this does have a December 1st deadline because there's, like I said, a separate essay component, and then there are on-campus interviews that take place in the month of January. You can find the application for this both in scholarships.mst.edu. And then also if you visit the website, Student Financial Services, or also search Chancellor Scholarship, you can find the application for it as well directly on the page on the website too. And then the Distinguished Scholars Award is kind of the similar version of that for out-of-state residents. So it is a $30,000 per year scholarship that's renewable for 4 years. It also does have a separate essay component and a deadline of December 1st. Something that when it comes to both of these scholarships, November 15th really is the best time to try to make sure that you've got everything all taken care of. Yes, you can submit it right up until the last minute, but November 15th kind of gives you enough time to make sure if you haven't got it rolling, then you don't have any last minute panic and your student's able to submit their best work. And then you can see the requirements for ACT, SAT, and the GPA requirements as well. There are virtual interviews for this one that do take place in January. Now, the National Merit Scholarship, there were a couple of questions about external scholarships. So the scholarships that I've been talking about are specific Missouri S&T internal scholarships. Same thing with like department-specific scholarships as well. Now, there are external scholarships. So if a student acquires scholarships elsewhere, any of those things that I mentioned about this doesn't stack with this, or like the chancellors and the distinguished scholars are not stackable with certain other scholarships, that does not apply for external scholarships. A good example of this is the National Merit Scholarship. So that's an independent scholarship not associated with us that many students nationwide participate in. So while it's a national scholarship that, a few students are selected. If your student is involved in the contention for the National Merit Scholarship and they make it to the semifinalist range of that competition, that competitive scholarship, they do qualify for the National Merit semifinalist package with us. So that has the information on that. And I do like to highlight that it does have a first year on campus housing portion of it as well. and then also a scholarship for the S&T Bookstore for Technology and Books. I mentioned scholars programs earlier, and so here's an example of what we're talking about. So the Cummer Vanguard Scholars Program. It is one that has a separate application, once again, findable on scholarships.mst.edu if your student qualifies. So there's 350 of these that we award for fall 2025, and specific for students that are in STEM degree programs, so science, technology, engineering, math. It's a $2,000 per year scholarship, renewable for 4 years with participation in the program. So there are certain things, activities, events, groups that the students are a part of, and it does qualify for that scholarship as long as they are participating in that. If a student does decide that they want to remove themselves from the Cummer Vanguard Scholars program, they can do that at any time. Same thing with the Honors Academy that I'm going to talk about next. It's just that the student will lose that scholarship if they decide they no longer would want to be a part and participate in the Cummer Vanguard Scholars program. So that shows the requirements to submit for eligibility for the Cummer Vanguard Scholars program. Please do, I want to highlight there are 2 deadlines. The second one is the one I like to highlight the most. That is March 15th. So this is another one of those awareness pieces. So while there is no deadline to decide that you're coming to Missouri S&T, some of these scholarships do have a time-based component that should create a sense of urgency. And then the Honors Academy. So if a student meets the qualification for the Honors Academy, then they will receive an invitation. Make sure your student checks their email. And I also want to specify something that is a common miss with new students. I mentioned that one of the first things your student should do and is guided to do on their application portal is log in to set up their Missouri S&T email account. A lot of students log in to set up that email account. Not enough students continue to check that email account after they set it up. It will become the prime source of communication from Missouri S&T going forward. And so make sure your student not only sets up their Missouri S&T email, but continues to check it, especially because if they qualify for the Honors Academy, they will get an invitation. And the deadline to accept that invitation is February 15th. And after February 15th, the program, and all of my experience, is full. So there's not wiggle room after that in order to get in if your student misses accepting that invitation. So it shows the eligibility requirements. Students, once again, that are test optional. They do evaluate the essay scores the student receive and send out those communications because test optional students are still able to participate in the Honors Academy. Much like the Cummer Vanguard Scholars, there are a series of things that students get involved in while they're in the Honors Academy. And I get a common question. In fact, I had it today with some families that were visiting. Is it worth the time commitment for the Honors Academy to graduate with honors and the distinguished notation on their diploma? So it starts out with things like attending seminars. Like the first year is basically an evening seminar once a month. And then it kind of goes into next coming years and semesters, different things such as being involved in a research project, coming up with a thesis, writing a paper as it goes through the years with that program. And I always say that if your student decides that they no longer see value in participating or they don't have the time to devote to some of the Honors Academy activities, just like I mentioned with the Cummer Vanguard Scholars, the student always has the option to withdraw. I have heard nothing but great things from the students that I've spoken to that have been a part of it. And if nothing else, I always say start out in the Honors Academy if you have the option and ability to, and take advantage of the $1,000 scholarship that comes with it. If you decide down the road that the student no longer wants to participate, at least you were able to take advantage of the scholarship during that time. Never leave money on the table is the way that I look at it. Also, if your student has been involved in Project Lead the Way, then if you log into our website and you just search PLTW or Project Lead the Way, you'll go to the Project Lead the Way site where you can see how specific Project Lead the Way courses transfer over. And then also there's an electronic form for you to fill out to have those courses transferred over to us. Part of doing that, then your student is able to be in consideration for one of $20,000 scholarships. I want to clarify, one of 20 $1,000 scholarships. If I mess up the spacing on there, that we award each year. For transfer students, we do have similar scholarship lineup options. So for transfer students, we have the Transfer Merit Scholarship from $1,000 to $5,000 based on the student's GPA. Pretty much both the Transfer Merit Scholarship and the Partners in Excellence Scholarship for transfer students require at least a 3.0 GPA at time of transfer. That's cumulative. And then the Partners in Excellence Scholarship is specific to students transferring from one of our partner institutions, which can be found if you search transfer on our website. We have over 33 transfer partners, not just in the state of Missouri, but also nationwide as well. And the Transfer Merit Scholarship and the Partners in Excellence Scholarship are stackable. So if a student qualifies for one coming from a partner institution, they would be qualifying for both. Students transferring in that are not coming from a partner institution, they would still qualify for the Transfer Merit Scholarship, just obviously not the Partners in Excellence Scholarship. Also, as a transfer student, if you're a student is involved in Phi Theta Kappa, there's the one-time $1,000 award. And if they're out of state, it's not listed there, but it's out of state, it is $2,000. Now, for transfer students from out of state, there is a Border County Award and a Connection Award, similar to the ones I discussed. So for transfer students in any of the counties that border Missouri, it's a 100% waiver to bring the out-of-state tuition down to in-state. This does not stack with the Transfer Merit Scholarship or the Partners in Excellence Scholarship. And then same thing with the Connection Award for students in Oklahoma, Kansas, or Arkansas. At 100% waiver, not stackable with the other ones on the left, other than Phi Theta Kappa. There's also the out-of-state Promise Scholarship for specific states, Texas being one of those. And then for international student, we have the Provost International Scholarship. It is its own standalone scholarship award that is not stackable with the ones listed. It is also automatic. Same things with the ones I have listed here for transfer students. And there are also, like I said, other scholarships that your student can be in consideration for at scholarships.mst.edu. Quite a few questions about resources. I will touch on this fairly quickly. Advising and registration, I mentioned that. So that is your students' time to get enrolled in courses and speak to their faculty advisor for their department. And it's not just some random person like myself that happens to have a course catalog in the office. This is faculty in the department that are there for your student their entire time with Missouri S&T. So if they decide they want to change major, do a dual major, start grad school early with the 4+1 program, they're able to take advantage of their faculty advisor during that who know the curriculum because they literally designed and teach it. Counseling services, we have counselors, licensed counselors available on staff 24/7. Also, your students able to connect with a trained student if they're more comfortable with that. There is also the UCare system, which is an anonymous reporting portal that other students, faculty, staff, even parents can use if they just have concerns about a student's well-being or just mental health, or just maybe they just need a little assistance getting through the things that they're going through. Our counseling service have resources available for anything that your student could be going through, both academically and personally, located on the second floor of Norwood Hall. Also, our IT help desk, I'm going to talk about that more on a separate slide next because I had some specific questions about computers and setups there. Student diversity initiatives, the Student Diversity House on campus has 24/7 tutoring available, and then also a food pantry and a clothing closet for students in need. Student health, I had questions specific about student health. So it is a fully functional general practitioner's doctor's office with licensed doctors, nurses, and sports medicine specialists on hand. Any student on campus as a student is able to go there for anything that you'd go to a general practitioner family doctor for. And if you're a student, that's part of being a student. They're most of the time not a copay unless there are special specific things that you need that you're going there for. They can refer you to a specialist in town or even get you to Phelps Health if it is an emergency for your student. They do everything from sports medicine to women's health and wellness, basic injury, ailment, disease. You can get blood work done and have lab results gone over there as well. Student success, that goes beyond tutoring. We have tutoring available in literally every building on campus. Our physics department has the most real estate and staffing devoted to tutoring. Don't let that scare you about our physics. They just happen to have the most resources available. Student success goes beyond that because they work with your students to go over different tutoring options, because they're more than just department tutoring. There's LEAD, which is an independent tutoring that students can take advantage of one-on-one or in groups. And then also with student success, they sit down with their advisor with student success, and they go through everything that your student has going on, what classes they're taking, what classes they're planning on taking, what they're involved with extracurricularly. Are they involved in a design team? Do they have a job that they're working? And they make a plan for that student for the month, the week, down to the day, to make sure that they're organized, they have a plan, know what to do and when to do it, so they don't get to that stress point where they need the assistance of student well-being. And then also our Student Veteran Resource Center, if your student is involved in anything military, if they are if you yourselves are a veteran or military person, then we have amazing resources to help take advantage of all the different access on campus. And our ROTC programs are phenomenal as well, located in Harris Hall. So I had a couple of questions about specifically technology on campus and what their student need to be prepared for. So some things that I'll go over is that we are primarily a Windows campus. So you will see Windows computers in most all of our labs. However, there is no reason that a student can't get by just fine with Apple products as well. I know several students that work on our visit center, even faculty and staff, that prefer Apple computing devices and are able to work with that just fine. Nowadays, it's not quite like it was when I was in college. Things are not so much processor heavy as far as what the specific tech requirements of a computer are, because so much of it is now cloud-based, network-based. So your student is able to take advantage of that remotely with remote desktops on campus. So the actual specifics of the computer aren't quite as important as it used to be back in the day. A good guide post that I like to use for students that are struggling to make a decision on what kind of computer to get, or if their current setup will work, is if you go to the bookstore, SNTstore.com. You can visit the bookstore's website or find it linked on our website as well. And you can see the computing offerings that they have, that they sell in our bookstore. That's a good kind of jumping off point to see what our bookstore is selling, because it's what IT recommends. Also, our IT department does honor the Dell warranty. So if you have an existing Dell laptop that has the Dell warranty, it's compatible with our help desk support, and they're able to take warranty claims right there at our IT department. Also, I like to highlight, some people ask me if it makes logical and financial sense to purchase computing options from our bookstore. I will say that the markup is absolutely minimal. I have always been extraordinarily surprised at how competitive our bookstore's pricing is, and I'm not paid to say that. And you can also take advantage of the tax-free weekend. And if you purchase a Dell, they do offer the Dell laptop warranty there too, which covers all damage to the computer. Also, a common mistake that I see parents make is think they're doing their students a favor by buying the full Microsoft Office suite for their student before they start college. We provide that for them. So any student on campus has free access of their own copy of Microsoft Office. So don't purchase that or have your student purchase it. Also, Apps Anywhere is a great way for students to download free software when they are on campus. it.mst.edu/services will help show some of the common software that students can download and install for free. And then also, I've got some basic IT and cybersecurity tips up there. Safecomputing.mst.edu is something that you and your student can check out there as well. I've got contact information and information about campus police. There was a question about that. Objectively, I can say as a townie, I feel extraordinarily safe on campus. We are ranked the 14th safest campus in the nation. Chief of University Police Doug Roberts is former Secret Service, so he's very intense about keeping our campus and our students safe, as well as staff and faculty. I recommend that students download the Rave Guardian app nonetheless. I, for instance, had a student that was visiting today that noticed that we don't have call boxes like they were familiar with. Parents, knowingly, like myself, were used to that in their college days. The emergency call box is located throughout any college campus. And notice we don't have those because we find that the best way to get a hold of University PD and for students to access University PD is through their cell phone. So with the Rave Guardian app that students can download, they are able to have one-touch access to University PD dispatch, and our campus is within 1 mile of not just University PD, which is right on campus, but also just down the street from the Rolla Police Department and Highway Patrol Troop I, and also the Sheriff's Department as well. So you have that one button access to that. You can also request an escort. Any student that wants that can receive that anytime. And also through the Rave app, they can do a virtual escort. And also they can do basically they enter in where they're headed. So they can do a virtual escort, or the student puts in their destination, and then the app will calculate how long it should take the student to get there. And then when that time has expired, if the student has not marked themselves and checked in as safe, it will automatically notify University PD that will do a wellness check on the student. And Chief Roberts said he would gladly have his officers do 1,000 false alarm wellness checks and miss one student that is in need. And then also, here's something that someone asked about, and I was glad that I knew the answer to this. If your student is going to be using a bicycle, which we are a very bicycle, scooter, skateboard, we have a couple of unicycle people. They're growing in popularity. All bicycles do have a serial number that the student can register as well. Question about campus parking. So parking is purchased for a calendar year. It is $180 for the year, and it's awarded conditionally. So when parking opens up in the summer, typically it's June 15th, the parking portal opens up. Students get priority access to the residence hall that they are staying in. And then don't be alarmed that when your student submits for their parking pass, it's going to show them on a waiting list. All students end up on the waiting list initially, and then they process them after the majority of applications have been submitted in the order that they were received. I can count on one hand the number of times I can think of through the years that we had a student staying at a specific residence hall that was not able to get parking there. We did have a question about can your student get by without a car on campus? If your student does not have a vehicle and are staying in one of the residence halls, our campus is very self-contained and self-sufficient, so they'll be just fine as far as that's concerned. Even for things like going to the grocery store, other Walmart runs, things like that. We are located just down from there. Many students will walk that. Me personally, at my age, wouldn't be doing that, but students are able to get by just fine there. And then as far as if the student is maybe not living on campus and has a vehicle, can they get by without a parking pass? My answer from my experience is yeah. So I attempted my first semester since I lived off campus, since I was local. Well, I did not get a parking pass. There is a lot of on-street availability parking, and we are, just a few blocks from downtown where they have city public parking lots as well. I will say 8 a.m. in the morning all the way up until early afternoon, the on-street parking and the free public parking around downtown fills up fast. So it can be kind of a roll of the dice. I got by just fine my first semester without it. I definitely did purchase a parking pass, so I had fewer frantic mornings trying to find an available spot, especially in the bad weather. There are parking meters in all of the lots. However, it is not a good long-term solution. You would end up be better off buying a parking pass if your student is living off campus. If your student has any accommodations that need to be covered and taken care of, anything from special testing to different documentation that needs to be addressed to make sure that student has what they need to succeed for any reasonable accommodation that you're requesting. Student disability accommodations, you can see their information there. They can get you taken care of. They are used to a wide breadth of different situations, and making sure that our students feel heard and accommodated regardless of what their need is. So if you have any specific questions about accommodations or things that your students require, make sure that you reach out to Student Accessibility and Testing. They're also located in Norwood Hall as well, but you have the contact information on there. They're an amazing resource to make sure that your student is well taken care of and you have that peace of mind. I'm going to go over some helpful links. Some of them I've already mentioned: reslife.mst.edu, parking.mst.edu. That, like I said, specifically parking passes, the applications open up about June 15th. Scholarships.mst.edu. That's a resource for your student to be checking consistently, even after they start. The available scholarships your student can be in consideration for, that changes every semester. it.mst.edu, dineoncampus.com/MST. Please note that is not a .edu, that is .com, for dineoncampus.com/MST. That shows all of the dining information for all the different venues, including Thomas Jefferson Hall, Einstein's Bagels, everything in the food court. Not only does it show hours, but it shows the specific menus and availability each day, each meal. And most importantly, it shows all ingredients and allergens. So it has notifications. So if your student is gluten intolerant or they have a peanut allergy, any ingredient that needs to be of note is marked on those. And like I said, for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and it's updated each and every day, especially for places like Thomas Jefferson Hall Cafeteria, where that menu changes at each meal. Registrar.mst.edu, anything as far as making sure you have updated transcripts on file. If you have issues like with a degree audit report, if you want to make sure that you've taken care of anything as far as transferring scholarships, I mean, not scholarships, but credits from other institutions like dual enrollment. The registrar's office and also has quite a few forms for anything involving academics as well. futurestudents.mst.edu/costs. That is the link that I mentioned earlier. And then apply.mst.edu is the portal that your student submitted their application on and is where that checklist is for their next steps. Like I said, remember, make sure your student is setting up their @mst.edu email address in our JOES system, our internal system, and then checking that email address. And then also from that checklist at apply.mst.edu, signing up for advising and registration, getting started on the housing portal when that opens November 1st. Some other notable inquiries: AP and dual credit. You can go to our website and see how AP scores and courses transfer over. Like I said, I can be a resource for that as well. I'll have my contact information again at the end. But dual credit, if your student took courses during high school, as long as they were before high school graduation, then your student is still a first-time college student, but we are able to transfer those. If it's a community college, for instance, in the state of Missouri, we most likely already have transfer guides set up for them. But yeah, just make sure your student is getting those final official transcripts for dual credit. We're not typically able to just pull those off of their high school transcript listing that. If they took it at a different college or community college, make sure we get those final official transcripts to be able to pull that over. Same thing with AP credit. Just because that is listed on your transcript, your high school transcript, does not mean that that is necessarily 100% coming over unless you have those specific AP scores sent officially to us from the AP website. I went over A&R advice, kind of a general timeline, like I mentioned, making sure that when the housing portal opens November 1st, you're able to start that process if you feel comfortable. And then also the advising and registration is the #1 thing that I recommend students get on top of as soon as you feel confident on what date you're able to make it. I did have a question that just popped up about student jobs and employment. There are a breadth of jobs on campus for students. It is fantastic to work for the university as a student because we know that you are a student first and foremost, and we're kind of invested in your success. Every building on campus does have student workers, everything from Havener in the food courts to the fitness center, the library. Our IT department is literally almost entirely staffed by students. So not only is it a great resume builder, but also something a lot of students I have found really just have a passion for, and it's paid work, and we couldn't get by without them. All the student ambassadors, if you visited campus, that help with tours, student panels, things like that, and all the students at new student programs and tutoring as well. A lot of the tutoring availability for some specific courses, that is a paid position as well. Jobs.mst.edu is where your student can find out employment on campus. There will be far more that shows up on that site as we get closer to the start of the fall 25 semester. Clubs and organizations and fraternity life. There's a lot of information on the website that you could reach out directly to those. But if you go to the Res Life page, there's a specific section for clubs and organizations, student life on campus. I did have also a question about more information for parents to stay involved, things like that. So I have a couple different QR codes, and also these are available at parents.mst.edu. Great resources for parents, ways to get involved, the Parent and Family Connection, also the Parent and Family Relations on Facebook, and then also the Parent and Family FAQ. We also do have Parents and Family Weekends that typically, like this year, it fell September 21st. So that's typically about the time each year that we have Parents and Family Weekends. So look for information about that coming out in the distant future. I have this recorded, so if you guys would like a copy for this or just a copy of the slides, I can get that sent out. I have jibber-jabbered at you for long enough. This is supposed to be an interactive Q&A, but I want to just thank you guys so much for submitting these quality questions. So I will open it up for any questions from the group. Also, feel free to utilize the chat. Sometimes when it comes to trying to get a question asked, it's easy to talk over each other. So feel free to utilize the chat, and I will stay on here as long as I am able to take care of any questions that come up. So does anyone have any specific questions that you'd like to submit in the chat, or unmute, and you feel free to ask your question as well. Question about international transfer, dates of orientation. Sean, I will reach out to you directly for that. But for international students, there's a couple of resources that I like to highlight. Our international admissions department for specific for assistance that any international student may need. And then also international student and scholar services for anything involving things like I-20 visa, things of that nature. They are the resource to make sure that you have everything that you need to be able to show up and be on campus. Typically for orientation, they have that right before the first day of classes. So typically the weekend before the first day of classes. So that you can find information about that, not only in your portal, but also through specifically international admissions. And then I will also put my email in the chat because I can see that some people have some very specific questions, and I want to make sure that we're able to chat offline one-on-one about some more of the sensitive topics regarding specific student issues as well. Darren, you mentioned SA, and I sincerely apologize. It is late, and I'm blanking on what SA stands for. You're probably going to type it out, and I'm going to be like, oh, obviously. But if you could type that out. See, there we go. Okay, so if you are submitting test optional, finding out how the actual, no, you're perfectly fine. It makes sense if I had said it out loud. So if you're a student applied test optional and you want to know what the actual rubric score is, I would love to tell you that there's an easy way to get that. What I would recommend, so you will get a letter that spells out anything automatic. So anything that is tied to things like you'd see on the chart for Groundbreaker Scholarship, but without the ACT, SAT, you will receive a specialized letter that comes out with your financial letter, and you'll receive another one that comes out after FAFSA has closed and been processed. So you will get a final financial offer letter. And as I said, it's not really final because you still have time to update some of those things before the semester starts. But those typically come out. I know that this year, I believe that the goal is before May, which is when it got stuck being last year because of the issues with FAFSA, but getting those out as soon as possible after FAFSA closes. Typically February is when those go out. But you can also log into your portal and see your specific admissions counselor. Reach out to them for more specific information about where you ended up, because they would be able to see that on your portal on their side. So what defines a first-generation college student? A first-generation college student is any student who neither of their parents graduated with a degree from a four-year institution. So if neither parent has graduated with a Bachelor of Arts, a Bachelor of Science, doesn't matter if you started going to college. It's if you went to a four-year institution and graduated, then students considered a first-time college student. Oftentimes, and Libby, great question about being a first-time college student, but not being a credit level freshman. So this summer semester is not considered a full traditional semester. So most students are unable to take a full course load during summer when it comes to the way it's set up at each institution. So while your student is a first-time college student, if they have not completed any college coursework following their high school graduation, the summer semester does not count because it is not a full-time, full-term semester. So your student is okay to take courses during the summer. However, I have seen students that have decided, oh, I'm going to take a gap semester, or this is where it comes in more than ever. Students that graduate early. So, they don't do their last semester of high school because they're able to graduate at the mid-semester mark in high school. There are a handful of students that do that. And then they decide to use that extra semester that's opened up to take college level coursework at a community college or another institution. They are no longer, after they take those courses in a spring or fall semester, they are no longer a first-time college student or a freshman because those courses were completed after their high school graduation, after they officially graduated from high school according to that high school. So courses during the summer, fine. Courses during the fall, not fine. Same thing with spring. And something else that is not a silly question, if your student decides to go to a community college and then come back as a transfer student down the road, year, 2 years, please keep in mind that the scholarships for first-time college students don't stick around for you. So if you decide not to attend fall of 2025, that money doesn't sit there and wait for you. When your student comes back, they would be a transfer student if they attend college elsewhere and they come here, and then they'd be qualifying for the transfer scholarships. Very good question about the enrollment fee for A&R. While paying the enrollment fee is part of attending A&R, it is not a part of signing up for A&R. Just needs to be paid before attending A&R. So like I said, you're able to lock down that A&R session, and then if you need to change to a later date, then you're fine to do that as well. And then you don't have to pay the enrollment fee in order to sign up for A&R. Your Justice Communication will come out and say, encouraged to pay that before attending advising and registration. So extremely good question and call out there. I'm glad that I had the opportunity to clarify that. Any additional questions, anything that I can go over in even more painstaking detail? Another question about an academic advisor. You are paired with your academic advisor at advising and registration, which is when you will meet and enroll for courses. So that will be your time. That is when they will have your up-to-date, most up-to-date transcript information and your time to sit down with them, plan out your path. We have virtual sessions that will be coming up. Make sure you check your portal, apply.mst.edu to sign up for those as well, and look for virtual sessions too if attending in person is not something that you're able to do. And I mentioned, my personal importance that I place in an early advising registration session. There are plenty of students. Like I said, the most popular advising registration session is the one the Friday before classes start. We will have students that show up the Monday of classes that have not signed up for classes, and we will get them taken care of. The concern isn't so much will I be able to get into class, but really the days and times of those courses. So don't panic if you end up not being able to make the steps, make the decisions you need until right before the semester starts. We're going to get you taken care of. And we have those advising registrations up to literally the last minute for a reason, because we understand that for some people, that's what they need for their time to get prepared, make the decisions, and put their plans in place. So there is no binding contract. So, you're not committing saying, hey, you are going to be here for 4 years. You're being billed for that entire time. Now, obviously, once the semester starts, there is a period where if you look at the academic calendar, there's a certain date that your student can withdraw from courses and get a refund on those courses, might not be held responsible for the full semester amount. Then it goes to 75%. Then it goes to 50% and 25%. And then there's a specific date in the semester where it's the point of no return. You're being billed for that whole semester. And that's pretty decently far into the semester. Really what it comes down to as far as making a decision, you can wait until the very day before classes start to do anything. But you're going to be doing everything last minute, which is perfectly fine. But when it comes to those steps that you can keep going on, when are you really committed? It just depends on your financial investment. So, I mean, even if you put money down, you pay the housing application fee, you get your housing offer later on in the summer when the first round goes out, and you accept it and pay your deposit on the room. You can still walk away from going into courses. There is a financial investment that you've made there. But yeah, you still able to. I always look at it like until you're at that point where you're putting money down, that's as much as a commitment as we require. And like I said, there's always a way to back out. You may not be happy about the money that you've put in, but don't stress about that. So your first tuition payment will be due. Like I said, your very first tuition bill will come out the summer before August. So like it'll be July 15th, for instance, if you're starting fall of 2025. So you do not pay any tuition until, that first tuition bill generates the month before classes start. And it's due the 10th of each month, starting, right before the semester starts. So that's when you'll get your first statement, is July 15th, if I'm remembering my academic calendar correctly. So February, no, you are not paying for tuition as far as anything that is due at that time. Submitting for FAFSA, all that is the free application for federal student aid. So when the way that your statement looks, so you've got your tuition, food, housing. I mean, all of that comes out on your monthly statement. So yes, there is a deposit to put down for housing when your student decides to commit to housing. Yes, you're going to select what meal plan that your student wants. That will all show up on that very first statement that you receive from the cashier's office in July. Very good question. Thank you very much for that. I've kept you guys extra long, which I'm comfortable with, but I am almost out of time mentally. What other questions do we have? Sean, for your question about the lawful presence verification on your portal, I want to say that your admissions counselor is Abu. I would recommend reaching out for him specifically, or I'm going to put an email address. I'm going to directly message it to you of who can answer that question a lot more eloquently than I can. Okay. Appropriate pause achieved. Sincerely, everyone, thank you so much. I know that I front loaded the beginning by literally talking at you. Let's be honest, not just the beginning, the majority of it. But that's thanks to all of the quality questions that you guys submitted. I put my email address in the chat and had it at the beginning. If anyone would like a copy of this, please email me, because as much as I would like to say, I'll remember to send it out to each and every person. I'll forget. So I went ahead and posted my email address one more time. Reach out to me sincerely with any questions that you may have. I'm not commission based. I want to make sure that you and your student have the information that you need to make the right decision. I like to think I'm here to help. So please reach out with anything that you need, and everybody have a fantastic night. I have been and will continue to be Justin Rawls, Assistant Director of Admissions. Have a great night.